Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so today we are going to be taking a second look. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The other day we took a second look at Clefairy from Evolutions. We said, you know what? Now is the time. This might be a much better card than it was before. Time to start putting it into decks. And today, I feel the same way about Gumshoos GX. And we're talking proper tech territory here. I'm not saying you should make a Gumshoos GX deck, but I am saying you should very much consider putting one into your deck. Now, early in the season, David Rudhoff did play this with Houndoom in a kind of mill-style deck. I say early in the season, that was quite early in the previous season. And it was quite good for countering Yveltal. But it's time to look again, ladies and gentlemen. It is time to take him out of our binders. So, there's a lot of good things to like about him. Let's start off with the basics. We've got an ability here. The ability just lets you look at your opponent's hand once per turn. And we'll talk about this more in a minute, but essentially this is just always a good thing. It means you know what your opponent is likely to do the following turn. It means you've got more information to use when making your decisions, and more information is always a good thing. Then you've got the GX attack Gumshoos Chance. This does 50 damage times the amount of energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon, plus 10 base damage. Although the 10 base damage is rarely ever particularly important, usually it's not getting a KO, or it is getting a KO just from the 50 times, but hey ho. There is an attack here, Headbutt, bounce for 100, free energy. It's not particularly good. As for the weakness, I know the weakness to fighting can be taken advantage of by Marshadow, but not that many people are playing Marshadow at the moment. I believe in time they will, but they're not right now. The retreat of 2 is a little bit of a pain, because really here he sits on the bench for the ability and uses his single energy GX attack, so a retreat of 1 would be much better here, but you can't have it all. I don't know, use a floatstone. So the thing that really got me thinking about this was looking at Gardevoir GX. Gardevoir GX, if they have 4 energy on them, you'll be doing 200 for a single energy. You add a choice band, you're then doing 230 and getting a one-hit KO. And in a whole bunch of matchups, Gardevoir is going to have 4 or more energy on it because they need to take that big one-hit KO. So if your opponent puts 4 energy on a Gardevoir, you can then just pop 1 energy in a choice band onto Gumshoos and get a one-hit KO in return. But there are a bunch of other notable KOs. I started running some numbers here. A bunch of them work out. Tapu Bulu, when it doesn't discard the energy to do 180, will take 150 from your attack. Add a choice band 180, you get a KO. Volcanion EX will generally have free energy on there. So you do 150, add a choice band, you get a one-hit KO. Ho-Oh will generally have 4 energy on there, so you'll be doing 200 and getting a one-hit KO without a choice band. But like I said, with the 10 base, Tapu Bulu you hit 160, that's not enough to KO. And Volcanion you hit 160, that's not enough to KO. And Ho-Oh you hit 210, but you've already got a KO. The 10 damage really doesn't make much of a difference here. Even something like Azernia's Break has to be very careful, because they'll generally have 2 energy on there to use Life Stream and you won't be able to get a KO. But the second they put a 3rd energy on there, for whatever reason, maybe with an EXP share, etc., then you've got the one-hit KO going there as well. Something like an Alolan Ninetales generally wants to put 2 water energy on and a double colourless to then discard to do its biggest attack. But if they ever leave that 4 energy on there, one-hit KO, and this is actually one of the very few circumstances where the 10 base damage will be important. And of course you've got the ability here as well. Every turn you just get to look at your opponent's hand, and this can be really useful. Now if you're playing Gumshoos, a card like Team Skull Grunt instantly becomes an awful lot better. Now being a supporter nowadays does mean it can be searched out with Tapu Lele's Wonder Tag GX ability. Your opponent reveals his or her hand, discard 2 energy cards from it. So this is very much a use Gumshoos chance. If they've got a bunch of energy in their hand, drop a Team Skull Grunt. If not, maybe you grab something like a Team Flare Grunt instead. And the great thing here is, you can look at your opponent's hand. and you can see, alright, they've got no energy on the field, or at least no energy after I take this KO. They've got 2 energy in their hand, so I'm going to play a Team Skull Grunt, and then it's quite likely they're not going to have an energy card next turn. And if you're going the Team Skull Grunt route, maybe combine this with something like Enhanced Hammer or Promo Jirachi to really make sure that they just don't have any energy out. Could be an awful lot of fun against a tech like Golisopod Gardevoir, which really relies on special energy, using cards like Enhanced Hammer and Jirachi to get rid of them while taking it out of their hand with Team Skull Grunt could really lead you to a very favourable position. It can help you decide whether to play an N or a Sycamore. Sometimes you kind of want to play the N to stop discarding a couple cards in your hand, but you don't know if your opponent's got a good hand or not. We'll use Gumshoos. If they've got a good hand, you play N to disrupt it. If they've got a bad hand, you play Sycamore. Quite often in the early game, people will not play a supporter in a Stage 2 deck. So is that because they've got the Candy Metagross already in their hand, and then they're going to play a Sycamore, or have they got nothing in their hand? That's awkward for you. Unless you use a Gumshoos. If they've got the Candy Metagross in their hand and the Sycamore, you play the N. If not, you play your own Sycamore, leave them with a bad hand. Trying to use Guzma to stall your opponent. Grab a Pokemon off their bench, try and stick it in the active. If they've got something like a Floatstone or an Escape Rope, they're going to be able to get out of this. Your Guzma stalling will not be working, but you know that in advance. So you can see whether it's worth Guzma stalling or not. And let's not forget that in Shining Legends we got the new Marshadow card. Marshadow's ability is basically a judge. So what you can do here is look at your opponent's hand, and if they've got a decent hand, you can drop a Marshadow to try and disrupt it. And the great thing is here, I mean, this is a lot to ask, but let's say you got 2 Gumshoos out. You look at their hand, it's pretty good, you play an N. It's still pretty good, use an Ultra Ball to search a Marshadow and disrupt it again. I'm not necessarily saying you should play multiple Gumshoos in your deck, but I am saying that it is an option. Also Delinquent. You can drop Delinquent at the perfect time to really hurt your opponent, and you can know that by going ahead and looking with Gumshoos. Maybe they've got 5 cards in their hand, but they really need 4 of them. Delinquent, making them discard 3, will absolutely hurt. And even if not, ladies and gentlemen, you're still getting information. And nowadays, Gumshoos is weirdly quite tanky. I mean, it's got 210 HP, the same as Golisopod, and it's not the easiest thing ever to KO. Tapu Bulu can do it if they discard 3 energy attached to them and play the Choice Band. Xerneas Break can do it, but they'll need 11 energy, or 9 energy plus a Choice Band. Gardevoir needs 7 energy, or 6 energy plus a Choice Band, and you're unlikely to have energy on you because most of the time you're just going to be waiting and putting 1 energy on to use a GX attack at the right time. Even Ho-Oh needs a Choice Band or a Steam Up to get a KO. Garbodor needs 9 items plus a Choice Band or 11 items. It's not the easiest thing to KO, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you're not likely to be using it as your main attacker, but my point is you'll leave it on your bench, and your opponent, even if they have a Guzma to bring it active, which is quite often not the case, they may well not be able to do enough damage to get the KO. It's one of these bench sitters that should be fairly reliable. Now, a Marshadow will take it down, but is your opponent really going to get free energy on a Tapu Bulu, use a Guzma and a Choice Band to take out a bench sitter you're using for the ability? Probably not, which means you can leave it sitting there for when it's coming in handy. Now, the 2 real downsides of Gumshoos here are that the main attack, the non-GX attack, really is quite bad. I mean, it's better than Charizard, but 100 for free energy, you then do become very vulnerable to something like Gardevoir, and it's just massively, massively underwhelming. It's fine in a pinch, but you don't want to be using it. And like I've said, the retreat cost of 2 is actually kind of annoying because it means that you can't just sit on the bench, come up, use a GX and manually retreat. You will need a second energy or a float stone or something along those lines. But hopefully in this video I've gone through the numbers nicely. The ability's amazing. The ability's always been amazing, but it's not good enough to play Gumshoos just for that. But nowadays, the numbers on Gumshoos Chance work really nicely to get KOs on key Pokemon. And that's basically the reason why Clefairy needed another look. Because it hit the numbers. I think in a lot of times now, Gumshoos will as well. If you really need a tech against Tapu Bulu, if you really need a tech against Ho-Oh, if you really need a tech against Gardevoir, and yes, they are main attacking Pokemon in 3 of the biggest decks at the moment, you can do a lot worse than Gumshoos. And the great thing is here, even when you're not playing those decks, even when Gumshoos Chance as a GX attack is going to be irrelevant, you've still got Search the Premises as a really useful ability. By the way, I might have called Search the Premises Gumshoos Chance earlier in the video. If I did, you have my sincere apologies. But we can talk about that and everything else to do with Gumshoos in the comment section. Tell me what you think about Gumshoos, because I think his time might be now. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. Make sure that if you want to support the channel, you check out patreon.com/PTCGRadio. A new bonus pod just went up today, and there's another one coming in a week. Get yourselves in on them, ladies and gentlemen. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.